I'm Jenna Tran. I'm 27, and I've spent the last 6 years writing code that powers a company the world thinks my brother built. We co-founded it, technically. Or at least that's what I thought when we were working out of my garage eating cup noodles at 2 a.m. while debugging back-end APIs. But the pitch decks, the investor meetings, the flashy interviews, those always had Ryan's face on them. My big brother, the golden boy. It's weird how a person can disappear even while doing everything right. We grew up in Redmond, Washington. Classic Asian American household. Achievement was everything, but only certain types of achievement counted. Ryan was the star. Speech team, finance club, got into Stanford. I was the weird tech kid. Good at math, kept to myself, built a pretty complex encryption system in high school that no one bothered to ask me about. When Ryan dropped out sophomore year to build something big, I thought he was out of his mind. But he asked me to join him, said we'd be a team. He'd handle the vision and I'd build the machine. And I believed him. Because I loved him. Because I wanted to believe we could do something meaningful together. So I quit my grad program, moved home, and started building. For 2 years, I barely slept. I wrote every line of back-end infrastructure, designed the system architecture, managed the database scaling, built our security layers. Ryan? He was charming VCs over wine and calling himself a technical visionary. When I brought up equity splits, he'd say, "We're family. It's all ours." When I asked to be included in pitch meetings, he'd smile and say, "Jen, you hate crowds. Let me do the talking." My parents, meanwhile, acted like I was his assistant. Mom would say, "Isn't it great your brother's giving you a chance to be part of something?" Dad called me the supportive sister, like I was just there to fetch coffee and reset passwords. They never even asked what I actually did at the company. Never saw a line of my code. But Ryan, he was building an empire. I let it go. For years. Until last month. It was a weekend trip back home. Ryan had just announced that our company closed a $4 million seed round. There was a family dinner, balloons. My mom baked a cake. The whole thing felt like a birthday party for someone who got famous on TikTok. At the table, Dad toasted to Ryan's brilliance and said he was proud of how his son had built something from scratch. I raised my glass halfway and said, "Technically, the back-end code didn't write itself." Ryan laughed. "Well, yeah, Jenna helped." Helped. Mom chimed in. "You've always been so good with computers, sweetie. Maybe this will open doors for you someday." I don't know what part of that made my hand tighten around the fork harder, the dismissal or the sheer ignorance. I stayed quiet, smiled, pretended I didn't feel like vanishing right there in my childhood dining room. After dinner, Ryan showed Dad the new investor deck on his iPad. I asked to see it too. He looked hesitant but passed it over. The opening slide read, "Founder and CEO, Ryan Tran, CTO, pending hire." I stared at that screen for a full minute. Then I scrolled further and found a quote from one of our new angel investors. "Ryan is a rare technical leader who understands both systems and storytelling." Funny, because Ryan doesn't even know what containerization is. I once had to explain to him what a cron job does. I said nothing that night. But the next morning, I checked my inbox. And there it was. A forwarded email from one of the investors, meant for a press contact, but mistakenly CC'd to me. The lead architect, Jenna, seems to be the real brains, but the story sells better with Ryan. I read it 3 times. Then I opened our server logs and realized that if I ever wanted my name back, I'd have to take it. After I read that investor's email, I just sat there for a while staring at the screen. The real brains. That's what they called me. Like I was some behind-the-curtain wizard, not an actual co-founder. Not a human being with a face, a name, a pulse. I didn't reply. I didn't forward it. I just shut my laptop and stared at the ceiling of my childhood bedroom, still covered in glow-in-the-dark stars my mom helped me stick up when I was 10. I was 27, but in that moment, I felt 11 again. Too loud, too much, too invisible all at once. The next morning, I confronted Ryan. I didn't go in guns blazing. Just walked into his home office, Mom's old sewing room, now full of whiteboards and ring lights, and said, "Hey, can we talk about the investor deck?" He glanced up, coffee in hand. "Sure. What's up?" "I noticed I'm not listed anywhere," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "Not even as CTO." He didn't even flinch. "Well, yeah," he said, like it was obvious. "It's not that kind of deck. You know how VCs work. They want a clear face, a leader. You're more behind the scenes." "Behind the scenes?" I repeated. "You said you didn't like speaking, and you hate Zoom calls, so I figured it'd be cleaner." I stared at him. "You mean more marketable?" He gave a tiny shrug. "Look, it's not personal. It's just optics. Investors need a story, and I am the one who pitched them. You pitched them using my infrastructure, which you got paid for," he said quickly. "I mean, not much yet, but..." "Paid? Ryan, we never finalized equity. You told me we'd split everything 50-50. He blinked. "Jenna, come on. You know startups don't work like that. You're technical. You build. I lead. We need someone out front. And you don't think I could be that?" There was a pause, half a beat too long, and then he said it. "You're just not camera ready." My jaw locked. "What does that mean?" He looked away. "It means you're too blunt, too intense. You'd scare them off. Investors like Polish." I laughed. It came out sharp and ugly. "So you're saying I can build the damn rocket ship, but I can't sit at the press conference?" "You're making this emotional." "No, Ryan. I'm finally seeing it for what it is." I walked out before I said something unforgivable. But something inside me snapped that day. That night, I dug through our old shared folders, found every contract draft, every tech doc, every bit of code that had my name on it, some of which he'd scrubbed. I checked the GitHub repositories. Most commits were mine. All the architecture, my diagrams, the encryption protocols, built off a framework I designed 2 years ago in grad school. All of it, mine. And then I found the incorporation paperwork, filed 6 months ago. Single founder, Ryan Tran. Not even a line for co-founder. No mention of me. He hadn't just forgotten me, he'd erased me. I barely slept that night. My hands were shaking so bad I dropped my toothbrush twice. My brain couldn't stop spinning. I wasn't just betrayed. I was used. All these years of loyalty, of building his dreams like they were mine. And this was how he thanked me? By making me disposable. By smiling to my face while gutting me behind my back. The next morning, I called an attorney. Just a free consult, nothing formal. But when I explained the situation, what I'd built, what he'd done, there was a long pause. Then the lawyer said, "Do you have timestamps on the original codebase?" "Yes," I said. "Then you have something. Possibly something big." I hung up the call with a dry mouth and a pounding heart. But that wasn't the twist. The twist came 2 days later, when I got a DocuSign notification in my inbox. It was a licensing agreement, supposedly signed by me, transferring all rights to the core tech to Ryan, dated 3 weeks ago. My name was on the document. My signature was on the document. But I never signed it. And now we weren't just dealing with betrayal. We were dealing with forgery. The day of the pitch started like every other before it. Ryan pacing in front of a mirror, rehearsing his lines like he was auditioning for Shark Tank. He kept calling it game day. He wore the tailored navy blazer our dad bought him, even though the sleeves were too short. I stayed in the shadows as usual, cleaning up last-minute code warnings, patching a security flaw he had ignored for 3 weeks, and rewriting part of the data visualization tool he'd decided to improvise with. At 9:52 a.m., he stood behind me and said, "You're not coming into the boardroom, right?" I turned around. "Why?" He gave me a tight smile. "Optics, 1 speaker, 1 face, you know the drill." "Right. The drill. The erasure." I stayed quiet and watched him leave. The conference room had floor-to-ceiling glass walls. I sat just outside, laptop open, watching everything unfold through a pane of corporate theater. 12 investors. Ryan in front of the big screen. His confidence was slick. Too slick. He hit all the right words. Scalable. AI-integrated next-gen architecture. They nodded along like bobbleheads. Then came the live demo. He clicked, and the dashboard didn't load. He clicked again. Error message. One of the investors leaned forward. "Is your system down?" Ryan laughed nervously. "No, just a glitch in the staging server." It wasn't. I knew exactly what line of code was failing. Because I wrote it. And I'd told him to leave the safety checks intact. He'd removed them so the charts would load faster, because it looked more impressive. He tried to reboot the demo. The screen flickered, then died. That's when it happened. One of the investors, Linda Chang from Fenlo Capital, looked at him and asked, "Can you explain your encryption model again? Specifically how you're managing decentralized token validation?" Ryan froze. He blinked, opened his mouth, closed it. Then, he said, "That's a proprietary method we've developed in-house. I oversee the architecture, of course, but I don't handle every line of implementation." Linda frowned. "Then who does?" He hesitated, and that's when I stood up. I walked into the room without being asked, without being invited, without permission. "Hi, I'm Jenna Tran. I wrote the encryption system." The silence was deafening. Ryan turned to me, panic flickering in his eyes. "Jenna?" I ignored him. I turned to the table. "You asked about token validation. We use an asymmetric chain-based protocol I designed 2 years ago. The keys rotate based on session entropy and device hash, which reduces both static vector vulnerability and blind token harvesting." Linda sat back, eyebrows raised. Another investor, Raj Patel, asked a follow-up about data compliance. I answered that too. I answered all of them. For 10 full minutes, I spoke calmly, confidently, clearly. The CTOI was never allowed to be. And I watched my brother die inside a little more with every word. When the questions slowed, I walked back out without another glance. I didn't see Ryan again until late that night. He came into the garage while I was pulling log data from the failed demo. He looked like a deflated balloon. "Why'd you do that?" he asked. "Do what?" I said without turning around. "Embarrass me. Undermine me." I stood slowly. "You forged my signature to steal the IP." His face went pale. "I didn't..." "Save it. I already spoke to a lawyer." He sat down hard on the workbench, rubbing his temples. "I thought it'd be easier this way," he mumbled. "Cleaner? You're not the type they invest in." I stared at him. "You mean I'm not white, not a man, and not wearing a blazer 3 sizes too small?" He didn't answer. I closed my laptop. "Don't worry," I said. "I'm not suing you." He looked up, startled. "But I'm not letting you present my work ever again." He opened his mouth to argue. Then my phone buzzed. It was an email from Linda Chang. Subject, technical follow-up. "We'd like to schedule a separate meeting with you to discuss direct collaboration moving forward, with or without your co-founder." I stared at it for a full minute. Then I hit reply. And in that moment, between my silence and his collapse, I realized something. I wasn't angry anymore. Just hollow. Like he'd taken something I can't get back. And maybe you know that feeling. When someone uses your brilliance to build their pedestal, then tells you to stay quiet while they climb it. I don't know what hurts more. The betrayal, or the years I spent thinking I needed his validation to matter. If you've ever been that person, the hidden one, the one made to feel too much or not enough, I see you. And I hope someday you walk into your own room and take your mic back too. After Linda's email, something shifted in me. I didn't respond right away. I needed time. Not to plan, God knows I'd been planning contingencies in my head since the day Ryan took full credit on that first panel. No, what I needed was clarity. Because what came next wasn't just about him. It was about me deciding I would no longer be complicit in my own erasure. The next morning, I called a meeting. Not with Ryan. With our legal counsel, our shared advisor, and our one remaining back-end developer, Mark, who had quietly followed my lead for years. I brought a folder with documents, screenshots of my codebase commits, GitHub logs, emails proving I designed the encryption system, and the big one, metadata from the forged DocuSign license Ryan had submitted. The lawyer's face went cold the moment she saw the metadata trail. "This is legally messy," she said slowly. "If this is real, he's opened the company to serious liability. Investors could sue for misrepresentation. You could sue for IP theft. Jail time's not off the table." I didn't smile. Because I wasn't looking for handcuffs. I was looking for leverage. "I don't want to burn the company down," I said. "I want it back." Mark looked at me, stunned. "You mean, take over?" I nodded. "With a clean board, a clean cap table, and a new CEO. The lawyer leaned in. "And if Ryan doesn't agree?" I placed my phone on the table. It was recording. "Then we go public with this." That night, I invited Ryan to meet me at a neutral spot, our old co-working space. The same one where we pitched one of our platform, to 5 people and a dog 3 years ago. He looked tired. Probably hadn't slept. Good. I didn't offer a hug, just slid the folder across the table. "What's this?" he asked, already defensive. "Proof?" He flipped through the first few pages. His face fell. Color drained. Page 3, the DocuSign metadata made him stop cold. "You saved all this?" "I built all this," I said quietly. He opened his mouth, closed it. Then he whispered, "I didn't mean to hurt you. I just panicked. Everything was happening so fast. Investors wanted clarity. They didn't want 2 co-founders arguing." "We weren't arguing, Ryan. You just stopped including me." Silence. Then he tried the sympathy card. "You were always the smart one. You didn't need the spotlight." "I didn't need it," I said, "but I earned it." That was the moment his eyes changed. He realized this wasn't about an argument anymore. This was about consequence. "So what now?" he asked. I slid a second folder across. "Resign. Quietly. We rewrite the narrative. I take over as CEO. You keep some equity, but no control. The board steps down. Clean slate." His hands shook. "You destroy me publicly. Number I could destroy you. But I won't. Not if you walk away now." He looked at me like I was a stranger. Then, slowly, he nodded. "You were never the quiet one, were you? We just never listened." 2 days later, we made the announcement. Ryan was stepping down to pursue other ventures. I was assuming leadership after years of technical stewardship. PR spin. But people who mattered knew. I spent the next week rewriting access protocols, shifting back-end permissions, and finalizing team changes. And then, it happened. While digging through the server logs, I found a buried script in the archive queue. It was recent. Sloppy. Tagged to Ryan's old dev token. It was a data exfiltration script, a timed export of sensitive user behavior data and IP, set to trigger at the end of the quarter. I froze. It was scheduled to be emailed to a domain I didn't recognize. I traced the address. It belonged to our top competitor. I sat there for a full minute. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stared at the screen and whispered, "You plan to sell it." Even after everything. The betrayal wasn't a mistake. It was a business model. If you've ever had someone look you in the eye and pretend the knife in your back was an accident, I want you to know. You're not crazy. They knew. They always knew. And if you're sitting with the weight of that realization right now, reading this in some quiet room where no one else sees what you've survived, I see you. Some betrayals aren't just personal. They're deliberate. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do isn't revenge. It's evidence. And a locked door. And a new key. The moment I found that export script, my whole body went cold. I didn't want to believe it. I wanted to think it was leftover debug code, a test, a misnamed file, anything but what it clearly was. A scheduled data leak straight to one of our top competitors, with a timestamp, with his old credentials, with intent. I sent the logs to legal immediately. They called an emergency board meeting that night. Ryan was no longer on the board, but he was asked to attend, to clarify his involvement. That's corporate speak for, we know you did this, and we're giving you one last chance to not be a total coward. He showed up late, of course. Same smug smirk, same blazer that never quite fit right. He barely sat down before I slid the printouts across the table. "This script was linked to your access token," I said. "You used your dev credentials to queue it." He scoffed. "That's not proof I wrote it." One of the board members leaned forward. "But it is proof you tried to send proprietary data to an outside address, and we traced that domain. It belongs to Apex Core." The room fell silent. Apex Core, our largest direct competitor. That name landed like a grenade. Ryan's voice cracked. "You think I'm selling out? That I'd betray my own company?" "You already did," I said quietly. "First by erasing me, then by trying to sell what we built." His face crumbled. No excuses left. No more polish. Just a scared little boy in a blazer too big for the truth. Legal took over from there. NDA breaches, IP theft, potential felony charges. But honestly, I didn't care about the court filings. I cared about this moment. The moment everyone saw him for what he really was. Not a founder, not a visionary, just a fraud who thought charisma could outcode character. He was escorted out of the building that same night. 2 weeks later, I refiled the patent, this time under my name. Full sole inventor status. The product roadmap was rebuilt, scrubbed of every decision he ever touched. Our team morale? Better than ever. But the part that really caught me off guard was what came after. One day, my mom called. She'd seen the news, the charges, the tech blogs finally talking about me, not as the quiet sister, but as the woman who built the damn system. "I didn't know how much you did," she said, voice thin. "I just thought he was the star." "I know," I replied. There was a pause. Then she said, "I'm sorry we made you feel invisible." That one sentence cracked something in me, because I hadn't realized how badly I needed it. Not revenge, just recognition. Just someone from my world saying, "We see you now." 6 months later, I hosted the team for dinner at my new apartment in DC, floor-to-ceiling windows, clean lines, quiet, mine. Mark raised a toast. "To the real founder," he said. "The one who built it and fixed it." We laughed, but I felt it land. Later that night, alone, I looked at the framed article Ryan had once tried to bury, the one where my name finally showed up. I didn't frame it to brag. I framed it because it took me a decade to believe I deserved to take up space. And now, I do. Because sometimes the loudest revenge isn't a scream, it's stillness. The kind that comes when you stop chasing people who never intended to see you, and start building doors they can't walk through anymore. The lesson I've learned: justice doesn't always come in handcuffs. Sometimes it shows up when you stand your ground, and the person who dismissed you no longer gets the final word. If someone's ever stolen your work, your voice, or the place you rightfully earned, share your story in the comments. I truly read everyone. And if you're still fighting to reclaim your space, stick around. We've got a lot more to tell each other.